we're in the Catacomb of Priscilla, one of the many catacombs under the city of Rome. These were Christian burial sites dating from about the 2nd through to the 5th centuries. And you can see here the slots where the bodies would have been.
So they were laid out.
The rock was hewn and the bodies were laid in there.
Keith Elliott is an expert in early art and Christianity.
Certainly. Yes.
How far does this extend?
Oh, there's kilometres all under the city of Rome.
The frescoes in these catacombs support the claims in the Gospels of Mary and Philip that women were influential in the early church.
Well, where we're going to now is the so-called Greek chapel.
Oh, look at that.
I know. One of the marvellous things we're going to see here is a fresco which has been dated 3rd century. There it is.
What are they doing?
Well, this is what looks like a Eucharistic meal. We've got 7 people sitting around a table here with bread and fish. But I think the thing to notice here is we've certainly got at least one woman present at the table. The person 3rd from the right is obviously a woman. You see the veil going from her hair over her shoulder. That might be rather surprising because we're not always used to thinking of women having a prominent role to play in the early church. But this was fairly typical because a lot of the early Christians met together in house churches.
I mean, in the Lost Gospels, women appear to play a much more prominent role. Is that a fair reflection of what was going on in the early church?
I think it is, yes, I think that's true. And the interesting thing is, looking at these pictures down here, is to remind ourselves that they were being painted about the same time as those Gospels were being written. So we've got pictures and we've got Gospels, both of which are emphasising the more dominant role of women in the early church.
Right. In the first centuries of Christianity, at least, it seems women were at the heart of the faith. And in Mary Magdalene, such women found a role model to be proud of. There's no way of knowing whether the Gospels of Philip and Mary really are a true representation of Jesus' life. But they may reflect a 2nd century power struggle between men and women over the leadership of the church. A battle of the sexes. The Mary Magdalene of these Gospels might not be entirely historically accurate, but what she represents is Christian communities where female leadership was a matter of importance, communities where women played a prominent role. And they also suggest that male leadership within the church was not a foregone conclusion. The debate was very much alive. Through the Gospels of Mary, Philip, and Thomas, I've glimpsed battles between long-forgotten groups of Christians. Sects who were divided over the right way to immortality and who fought about the position women should hold. Their Gospels reveal ideas and doctrines far removed from those we understand as Christian today. But there's one issue in particular which dominates a great number of the Lost Gospels. It's not about the hierarchy of the church or the path to salvation. It's about the very nature of Christ himself. Today, Christian beliefs about Jesus are clear. He was simultaneously human and divine. It's a revolutionary idea, but we can easily forget that it's one which only emerged after 3 centuries of bitter debate. The issue was, how could Jesus be both God and man? And there's one Lost Gospel in which the extremes of this conflict are very clearly revealed. It's a work which shockingly suggests that Jesus was never human at all, and it's attributed to his closest disciple, Mary Magdalene's arch-rival. I'm talking, of course, about this man, St. Peter. In Christian tradition, he's Jesus' chief apostle, his right-hand man, and the rock on which his church was built. Quite literally, if you believe the tradition, that the bones found under here are of the great man himself. He was the humble fisherman that became the keeper of the keys to heaven. What better witness could there be to what really happened during the life of Jesus? We have a couple of letters claiming to be from Peter in the New Testament, but surely, if there was a Gospel of Peter, it would have been important enough to make it into the Bible. Well, there is, and it didn't. So, what's the story? Scholars had always known about a Gospel of Peter because of tantalizing references to it in other Christian texts from as early as the 2nd and 3rd centuries. But their reaction to it is rather surprising. The church historian Eusebius wrote about the Gospel in 300 AD, but rather than singing its praises, he included it in a list of heretical forgeries. So what was it about the Gospel of Jesus' most trusted disciple, Peter, that was so dangerous? Well, for centuries, scholars didn't know. No manuscript of it survived, so its contents remained a mystery until a chance discovery. The year is 1886, and a team from the French Archaeological Mission are excavating the grave of a monk in the mysterious town of Akhmim on the east bank of the Upper Nile. The archaeologists then uncover a codex parchment buried with the monk, and after translating it, they quickly realize the magnitude of their discovery. A portion of the Gospel according to Peter had been restored to the Christian community after having been lost for centuries. Just think of it, a Gospel written by the man who knew Jesus best of all. This has to be big news. But its contents revealed something that would have rocked the early church. Whereas in the New Testament Gospels, Jesus dies, in the Gospel of Peter, he doesn't. The image of Jesus suffering and dying is one of the most widespread and powerful in the Christian church. And it's remembered very literally by pilgrims at Easter. Every year, thousands of Christians come to Jerusalem for the Good Friday procession. They pack the route that Jesus is supposed to have taken, carrying the cross to his death. The idea of Jesus' agony on the cross is so ingrained in the human psyche that it's difficult to imagine a Christianity without it. But unlike the account of the crucifixion in the canonical Gospels, in the Gospel of Peter, the story of Jesus' ordeal on the cross is one completely devoid of suffering. The text claims that as he was being crucified, he was silent, having no pain. The account also carefully avoids saying that Jesus died. This failure to undergo fundamental human experiences such as pain, suffering, and death would have rung alarm bells for many in the early church. Were the supporters of the Gospel of Peter suggesting that Jesus wasn't human?